Israel a justification, both political and moral, to defend themselves, quell the violence, and continue the occupation without taking attempts to create peace?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there is, you don't want to get into the realm of conspiracies, mostly because, not because all conspiracies are untrue, but because it's very difficult to prove. That's what makes it a conspiracy. But I think it's reasonable to infer that at least part of what you're saying seems to me true. Designating those national religious sites, obviously, in part was playing to his domestic right-wing constituency, but in part, I think it was one of these desperate gambles to, if we can call it, religiousize the conflict, because once you turn it into a religious conflict, and there really isn't a rational basis for trying to resolve it. So Netanyahu would much prefer to be dealing with fanatics and crazies than he would with rational people willing to settle the conflict. And that was incidentally one of the main reasons Israel attacked Gaza, because Hamas was becoming too reasonable. It was expressing its willingness to settle the conflict in the June '67 border. And for Israel, this has always been a disaster. One Israeli political scientist, Avner Yaniv, he coined a nice phrase, I always remember it. He called it those Palestinian peace offensives. And it's those peace offensives that cause Israel so much grief. And now Hamas was conducting itself responsibly. As the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs put it, it was careful to maintain the ceasefire, and it was proposing a reasonable, rational settlement of the conflict in accordance with international law, UN resolutions, and the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice. Well, for Israel, that was a disaster, and Hamas had to be destroyed.
Yeah.
If it were left for Israel to decide what kind of peace she wants, do you think there would be peace in the Middle East?
Well, it depends on what you mean by would there be peace, because in order for there to be peace, there would have to be, on Israel's terms, it would have to be acquiescence by the other side to abject submission. And if the other side accepted abject submission, yes, then there would be possibility for peace. But if the other side did not accept that condition, then the likelihood of there being a peaceful settlement on Israel's terms is rather remote, because the terms would not allow for, I'm limiting myself to the Israel-Palestine conflict, not to the regional question, but the terms would not allow for, if we can use the term, and I see no reason why we shouldn't, don't allow for Palestinians to carry on their lives with minimum human dignity. And that's what's being denied them.
Yeah. The guy behind you, and then you can be next. Go ahead.
First of all, could not the slaughter in Gaza be seen in part as Israel trying to correct its own kind of Vietnam syndrome that resulted from the relative lack of success in Lebanon? Secondly, you said that this human rights report was consequential for the first time. I didn't quite understand, except your reference to the way it might resonate with liberal Jews in the United States, how this report is consequential. And finally, are you satisfied that allegations of plagiarism against Harvard Law faculty working in this field have been investigated in a satisfactory way?
Should I take those questions in reverse order? Because I have a feeling when we get to the third, a gong is going to ring, or a hook will come out. On the first question, I think you're entirely correct. Israel's main purpose for going to Gaza, and they didn't really hide it. They were saying it every day, every minute of every day. They said it was to restore their deterrence capacity after the defeat they suffered in August 2006 in Lebanon against Hezbollah, the Party of God. and they wanted to restore that deterrence capacity. Deterrence capacity is just one of these fancy technical terms probably invented at the Kennedy School, like that other idiotic term, asymmetrical warfare, which means absolutely nothing. But basically, restoring deterrence capacity, Ariel Sharon in 1967, just before the attack on Egypt, he put it well. He called deterrence capacity the Arab world's fear of us. That Israel was worried that the Arab world no longer feared it after it happened in 2006, and Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, was rubbing Israel's nose into the ground and saying, we're no longer afraid of you, attack us again, we'll beat you again. And Israel was getting very upset. It didn't feel that it yet had the possibility of a military victory over Hezbollah. Then it tried to conscript the United States into going to war against Iran, and that way restore its deterrence capacity. The U.S. vetoed that idea, and so now it looked around for some place to restore its deterrence capacity where it can assure itself of a victory. And the place, of course, was Gaza. The problem with Gaza, however, was everybody knew Gaza had no military capability. So how are you going to restore the Arab world's fear of Israel by attacking a place which is defenseless? And that was a problem for Israel. And the way it worked itself out of the problem was exactly as I quote the Israelis. They said, we were going to go into Gaza and behave like a mad dog, behave like we're lunatics. We will attack all of the civilian infrastructure. We will, as Tzipi Livni said, we will go wild. We'll carry on with real hooliganism, and that way we'll transmit to the Arab world that if you mess with us, it's not going to be a war. We're just going to annihilate you, like what we did in Gaza. And that's the way they hoped they would restore their deterrence capacity. The second question you asked, just remind me quickly.
Was the consequential...
Oh yeah, why was consequential? I think in large part it's, it's maybe it's not politically correct to say, but I think it's large part because Goldstone is Jewish, and because of his past personal history. It was impossible to dismiss him and disregard him.
What have been the consequences, he's asking? What have been
the consequences have been, number one, Israel cannot escape the ghost of Gaza. Remember, we're nearly a year and a half after. People's memories are short. But you could still come to a room like this, and the announced topic is Gaza, and large numbers of people will come out. And the other thing they can't escape is Goldstone. Yesterday, Dory Gold, who was either, I can't remember, he was the Israeli ambassador to the U.S. or the U.S. ambassador to Israel, but one or the other. Dory Gold. Dory Gold had an article in the U.S. World and News Report, and the first sentence is, the Goldstone report won't go away. They just don't know what to do with it. And the Goldstone report was pretty devastating. A disproportionate attack to punish, humiliate, and terrorize a civilian population. And that won't go away. For Israel, incidentally, it's a disaster on two fronts. Number one, because Goldstone called for universal jurisdiction, which means Israeli officials have trouble traveling abroad now. But that was not their biggest concern. Their biggest concern, as they said over and over again, is they can't attack anymore. No, you shouldn't fool yourselves about that. A lot of people say, oh, Israel doesn't care about public opinion. Public opinion is not important. No, public opinion is very important. And that's why Israel invests so much in trying to control public opinion. And they know, and they say, public opinion is now at such a threshold that they can't launch another attack, which is actually one of the greatest ironies of the Gaza attack. They launched it to restore their deterrence capacity, but at the end of the day, they lost their deterrence capacity. They can't attack. And that's a very big consequence in Israel, which they can't shake. And it's the main reason they're trying to neutralize that report, to restore their ability to attack. As for the third question, not because I'm scared or anything.